Something of a riddle sits at the corner of Tremont and Boylston streets in downtown Boston. That's where you'll see this building, the most worshipful Grand Lodge of ancient, free, and accepted Masons of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, or the Grand Lodge for short. So what do the Freemasons do inside such a grand and imperious building? That question piqued the curiosity of our own Edgar Herwick, who recently knocked on the front door to find out, and Edgar is here. That's gutsy of you. I like that.
Well, I needed to find out what was going on.
I would have wanted to.
It's a huge building.
I pass by it all the time. So just remind all of us again what a Freemason is.
So the Freemasons are a fraternal organization. You know, they had their heyday, like a lot of these in the 50s and 60s, and there were a lot of them, like the Kiwanis, the Elks, the Eagles. The Freemasons are a little bit older than most, and it's people, you know, their thing is self-improvement, a man becoming a better man, and community service like a lot of these are. But it's ultimately a fraternity. It's a fraternity for adult males.
All right, now, what'd you find in there?
Well, Emily, the place is huge, like I was saying, right? 9 stories, right? And they have all kinds of rooms, sub-rooms, meeting rooms, right? Along all of the halls are oil paintings of all of the Grand Masters throughout the building. But the centerpiece is this. Check it out. This is Corinthian Hall. This is where all of their serious business goes on. And if you look at it, it's sort of like a cross between a church and a room of state, right? They have an altar. They have seating all around it. They have these sort of thrones. And this is, right there is a former Grand Master, Paul Revere, you might have heard of him, former Mason Grand Master there. This is their, one of their symbols, the stone. Now, of course, Freemasons go back, their roots go back to the stonemason guilds of the mid-1400s. And this is that way of showing like a good man becoming a better man, sort of the rough rock and then the more finished rock. It's kind of like one of their big symbols.
All right, so you also found something called the Chamber of Reflection.
Which is like exactly what you hope is in a place like this, right? You hope there's something called the Chamber of Reflection,
beating people
right?
So beating people into submission.
Yeah, let's take a look at the Chamber of Reflection. Here's the best thing about this. So I was talking with their communications director, who was walking me all around, telling me everything, and I said, oh my gosh, I'm like, what is this? What goes on inside of the Chamber of Reflection? Guess what he says to me? He says, I have no idea. I said, what do you mean you have no idea? He says, this is used by the York Rite, which is one of the subsects of the Masons. He says, I'm not in the York Rite, so I don't actually know what happens here. So it turns out that the Masons have upwards of more than 100 of these sub-organizations that you can join. There's one called the Scottish Rite, there's one called the York Rite, some of them are invite only, some of them you can sort of test into. The most famous, the one that everybody's heard of, is the Shriners. So the Shriners who run these hospitals, every Shriner is a Mason. They're a subset of the Masons, which is interesting. That was something that I learned.
So this particular building goes back to like the 1890s or something, but what about this particular order? How long has that been?
They've been in that location. This is their 3rd building in that location, but they got started way back in 1733. So the Masons got their start a few decades earlier than that in England. That was the first official Freemason lodge. And in 1733, a guy named Henry Price, who was from England and living in America, went back to England, and he obtained a charter to start the first official Freemason Grand Lodge in the New World. Him and a group of guys gathered at a place called the Bunch of Grapes Tavern, which is on what is now State Street, and they launched this order in 1733. And they have, in their anteroom to that big hall that we saw, this is a memorial stone to that man Henry Price. This sat at his grave for a time, and it was getting weathered, so they brought it into the building. And it notes that in 1733 he started the first Grand Mason Lodge in the New World. It was the first in the Western Hemisphere and the 3rd oldest. There had only been this Grand Lodge in England, and there was one in Ireland at the time, and this was the 3rd one. So they trace all the way back to 1733.
Well, so now traditionally this lodge was only open to men. Is that still the case?
It's true. The lodge, the organization is a men-only organization. They're still that way. They see value in that. They're inclusive in a lot of ways, which is interesting. You have to be an adult male, and you have to believe in a higher power. Those are the only 2 things. But you can be of any race. You can be. They have people of all ages. They have people of all creeds and colors.
Really?
They do. It's interesting. One of their earliest Grand Masters was a Jewish person, which in the 1800s would have been pretty extraordinary. That Christians and Jews would have been in an organization together. Certainly, a lot of African American people have been involved in the organization through the years. So it's inclusive. What's also interesting is, as they were telling me, they don't have a copyright on the name Freemason or some of their symbolism. So there are organizations, while not officially sanctioned, that go through all of the rituals of being a Mason, that are men and women together, that are women only. Even though the Freemasons don't officially recognize them, they also kind of let it happen. So, but they are an all-male order.
I mean, so most people kind of have this association with that Dan Brown novel, the Da Vinci Code or something. But when you knock, did you really just knock on the door? Were they welcoming? I mean, I think I'd be intimidated to do that.
Well, one of the things that's fascinating is because, like you suggest, because of Dan Brown and these National Treasure movies with Nicolas Cage, right? These guys have a mythology beyond any of the others, like the Elks or anybody else. But what's fascinating is, for all of this sort of conspiracy theory about their secrecy, they've done a better job in recent years than any of these other organizations in outreach. They've done a very aggressive campaign on radio and television where you hear this Ask a Mason, find out about being a Mason. When I asked if you guys could show me a way around, they were totally open about it. And they're seeing the benefits of that, certainly here in Massachusetts. Robert Hoke, the communications person who showed me around, he said that 60% of the new members that they have coming in are under the age of 40, split about evenly between people in their 30s and people in their 20s and people in their 30s. So they're seeing the benefits of this outreach to a new generation, which is, it's pretty interesting.
Did they convince you, Edgar?
Well, Emily, what's the old line? Is it Groucho Marx? I would never be a member of any organization that would have me as a member, or something like that, right? So we'll leave it at that.
All right, that was really interesting.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot for that.